The story I chose to do this presentation about is called Interpretive Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I hope I'm saying that right. And it's going to cover how this text is useful for expanding your world and cultural view and why this text would be useful to include in the Lit 273 course syllabus. A little bit about the author. Her name is again Jhumpa Lahiri. She was born in 1967 in London, although she moved to Rhode Island at a very young age, and she was raised by two parents of Bengali descent, specifically from India. Her writing tends to focus on being Indian while being raised in America. Lahiri does say that she considers herself American, although being of Indian descent and not being born here. The plot is about a family from America who is visiting some relatives who live in India. They do this about every year. The father, Mr. Das, hires a tour guide to show them around. Throughout the door, Mrs. Das, the mom, and the driver, Mr. Kapasi, develop a relationship. Mr. Kapasi also works as a translator for a doctor because a lot of the patients in that area speak a language that the doctor does not. So Mr. Kapasi does speak the language, so he helps to translate for the doctor. At the end of the story, Mrs. Das confides in Mr. Kapasi about troubles within her home and marriage. So how the story can improve your awareness of other cultures and their norms. The story addresses a few key topics that the two different cultures' upbringings have varying opinions on. The first is the importance of Mr. Kapasi's job, which I found particularly interesting. So Mr. Kapasi, again, when he's not a tour guide, works as an interpreter for a doctor. Kapasi sees this as kind of a failure because when he was younger, he studied a bunch of languages, about half a dozen he was fluent in, and over the time he never used them the way he imagined he would, so he kind of fell out of touch with them and only knows keywords from them and couldn't speak them fluently besides English and this other language that he helps the doctor to translate from. Although he sees this as kind of a failure, Mrs. Das describes the job as romantic and sees that the patients rely on Mr. Kapasi to help translate to the doctor so they can get the right medical care, and she thinks that is very interesting and generous of Mr. Kapasi. Second thing that is they have difference of opinions on is the structure of the Das's marriage. Now the Das's are very distant; they're not very intimate in their relationship. They don't like each other very much, it seems, to Mr. Kapasi. And they did meet when they were in college, and they never really had a chance to, have a marriage to themselves before they were having kids. And, this is a very different perspective than Mr. Kapasi, who, in India, they have more of an arranged marriage system, and he sees this as very kind of a weird difference between the two cultures. And then the role of the parents and how they should act confuses Mr. Kapasi because he sees the parents in the story as more of siblings because they don't really discipline their kids and they don't parent the way Mr. Kapasi thinks they should. And why this text would be useful in the curriculum of Lit 273 is it depicts how a person raised in America might treat other cultures when visiting foreign countries. The text also describes how an American tourist might be viewed towards locals. There's one specific instance where Mr. Das wants to take a picture of a homeless, poor Indian man, and Mr. Kapasi thinks that although being Indian descent, it's weird that they come off as very touristy because they want to take a picture instead of helping this man, whereas like a native might want to do more for him instead of just taking a picture to look at later. And also, the author of the story brings a unique point of view, sharing the same background as the main character's family in the story, having Indian descent but living in America. And how you can apply the story to your own life, it can help to be mindful of different cultures and their beliefs when you go visit there and think about how they're different and why they're different, and recognize that where their beliefs come from on certain issues, and just be mindful of ponder how they draw those certain beliefs from their experiences. In conclusion, this story is a great example of what it's like to grow up in America and visit another country. It offers views on issues from two different cultural perspectives and would be a good choice to include this story in the Lit 273 syllabus. Thank you.